What up, gatekeepers? Back at you with another episode 9, Winning Culture. Today, I have one of my great friends with me. His name is Jake Fieiras, who plays for the Wisconsin Whitewater football team. Wisconsin Whitewater's football program is extremely respected in the D3 sports area. They have over 6 national championships, I'm pretty sure, collectively over their entire years of their program. Jake is someone who also has embraced the process and what it means to be a part of that winning culture and what it takes to get to that next level and become your best possible person. I'm really excited to pick Jake's brain and what he's learned in his first few years of college and what it means to be part of such a successful program. You're going to learn so much from this episode and what you really experience in your first year of sports. Recap of last episode, episode 8. Great conversation with famous TikToker Matt Hart with over 100,000 followers. Our downloads are slowly increasing, but please, I urge you guys, you need to be listening to every episode to attain the most knowledge possible to become the best player and person that you can be. I also strongly encourage you guys, and I know I repeat this sometimes, but this is for listeners if this is their first episode. Check out our CTG Shooting Academy if you're trying to take your game and shot to the next level. It's the perfect blend of the knowledge, the drills, and the mindset necessary to become an elite shooter. If I would have had that information sooner, I'd be 5 times the player I am today. Can't wait to get into this with my best buddy, Jake Fieiras, episode 9, Winning Culture. Let's dive right into it. Jake, thank you for joining me today. Before we dive into what a winning culture means, why don't you let the listeners know who you are, why you wanted to be on the podcast, and kind of how sports shaped you into the man you are today?
Thanks for having me on, Jack. I'm a lifelong teammate of Jack's. I attend the University of Whitewater, where I play football at. I wanted to be on this the Close the Gate podcast because I think it sends a good message to athletes and people that are just trying to improve in their daily lives, no matter what that is. Sports have shaped me and my life by basically like everything I do.
That's really good. So before I ask you what winning culture is and what it's like playing for such a good program, I'll dive in a little bit of how I train and teach culture to my students. A lot of what I've been saying on this podcast too is how I want to bring all these people together to grow, Close the Gate. And that has a direct correlation to what culture means. And that's exactly what I'm striving for in CTG. To me, culture is having a family atmosphere. It's like your second family. You have true care, true genuine compassion for the people around you, and you genuinely want their success. Like if you saw the person next to you have a successful day or week, you'd be genuinely happy for them. That's truly what culture means to me, is basically having that family atmosphere. And all of you have to have the same goal in mind to have that winning culture. If even one person out of the hundreds of group of people, how many kids are on the football team at Whitewater?
Probably like 90.
90, geez,
Yeah.
That's big. So all of them need to know and have the same goals in mind to achieve the ultimate success of winning. One example I use and try to get culture and family atmosphere ingrained in my students' head is always counting out loud when we have paired or grouped workouts. And a lot of kids, when they come in, they're not really confident with their voice. They're normally really nervous about training. And I make them count out loud because they're normally super nervous, and I'm trying to build the confidence in their tone of voice. And when they're with group or paired sessions, I think it's extremely important for kids to count out loud as a team to build that team chemistry, that culture and family atmosphere. Because a lot of kids say we're doing a finishing drill and I have them make 6 as a team. Most of the kids will come by their first couple days and they'll be like 1, 2. They'll just count really quietly because they're not confident in who they are and who their voice is. And it seems like a super minute detail that I make them count loudly as a team, but I'm trying to build that team chemistry and that voice as a person. And it also directly correlates to the game because right now we have COVID, so obviously there's no fans. But when fans do come back, you can't count out loud and try and talk to your teammate with the most quiet voice possible. You have to be confident in your tone and confident with the way you talk to build that team chemistry and family atmosphere. Small things become a huge deal in the long run. And that's having my students count out loud as a team and being confident in their voice is a perfect example of how I implement a winning culture into my training sessions. So, Fifi, you obviously have been a part of the Whitewater football program for 2 years now, so you're a sophomore. What are really the true lessons you've learned about what a winning culture really is, and why did you want to talk about that on the podcast episode today?
Yeah, so basically when I heard that you were going to be talking about culture, I thought I should come on because I could probably spread some knowledge of mine to your listeners, through my experiences. So in high school, when, we played sports together, I really didn't know what a winning culture was. And I didn't learn that until I got to Whitewater in the summer of 2020. And so kind of just how I learned that was just through preparation through everything. And I know you try to do this with your students, like writing down what they do in a daily journal, everything they do in a day to see how productive they are. Going from meetings and having detailed notes like for our preparation for our practices and plays to writing down our 1% goals for every single practice. Because what people don't understand is the game isn't the most important thing. It's the process, it's the practice, it's the journey, and that's what I thought I could, spread to your listeners.
That's really, really good. Do you want to elaborate on that 1% thing? You've mentioned that twice already. Is that something Whitewater stresses a lot in the program?
So that's actually kind of one of the traditions there. So after we break into our position meetings, we go on a whiteboard, and your name is on this huge whiteboard, the list of, so it would be me and 45 defensive players, because I play defense, and you would literally write down, and it can be as simple as like your first step, or how I could put it in a basketball way, like your swipe through on like when you drive or something, holding your foul through. It could be simple as that. You're trying to improve that and get 1% better, because 1% adds up. And that's what I thought was really intriguing when I first got there.
That's really, really good. So that's also gets into something I preach too, is it's very cliche saying, but never cut the line short. You are doing a great job of explaining how you can get 1% better. You also can get 1% worse in terms of shortcuts. So I rarely do sprints with my students, but if one day, say I'm not in the greatest mood and they do something that ticks me off, we'll probably do some sort of sprints or slides. And if I see a kid not touching the line or stopping their foot a couple inches before the line, that'll really make me mad, because the kid is getting used to taking that tiny little shortcut. And Aaron talked about this, Coach Aaron now, talked about this in episode 2. What's 9 out of 10 reps? You can do one more rep, but your mind doesn't think you can. Your body can always do more than what your mind is capable of letting you. It's that similar aspect of the shortcuts. And when you're running, finish that 5 feet of the finish line, because if you do slow down before that line, that 1% shortcut will stack up over time. And slowly you have this huge mess of shortcuts and gains you could have had if you didn't take that shortcut. So I thought that was really, really good, Fifi.
I want to add another thing to what culture is, and like what the similarities are when you see like great companies, great programs like, Alabama just won national, they just killed Ohio State.
Yeah.
So kind of what I learned there is whenever you're dealing with, when you're trying to make your company great or grow, or you're trying to like have a program rises, there's always pillars to success and, what you build your foundation on. So kind of like what our mentality is at Whitewater for football is we try to play fast, physical, and discipline. So that's kind of like our main motto. And I think that's really relating to Close the Gate, because the name Close the Gate is founded on, playing like defense, like the defensive system.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a huge stressing point when it comes to like anything, and it could be not sports related.
For sure. That's really, really good, Fifi. That actually gets into something. This is a little off topic, but this is something I read the other day, and it's the pillars of working hard. All those pillars have to work together for the ultimate goal to happen. One pillar can't stand without the other two, if that makes sense. So like an example of 3 pillars of working hard. One, you have to work hard in the first place. And I'm sure everyone's told you that throughout your entire life, that you have to work hard if you want to get somewhere. But you need these other 2 pillars to achieve whatever success you're looking for by working hard. So one's obviously to work hard. 2 is to work smart. Someone can work extremely hard, but if they don't work smart with that, they're not efficiently trying to get as good as they can be as fast as possible. Like my goal as Coach Jack and Coach Aaron as trainers is to make you the best player you can be as fast as possible. Because if every trainer made you better, but how fast they made you better didn't matter, then there would be no competition in the first place. Whatever trainer can make you better faster is going to make you a better player towards the end of your end goal, whatever your future self desires. And the third pillar in terms of working hard is consistency. If you work hard and you work smart, but you're not consistent with those working hard and working smart aspects, then the whole thing comes tumbling down in the first place too. So all 3 of those pillars need to work together for the ultimate success and whatever you're trying to achieve in life. So I thought that's really good, Fifi. Whatever pillars you're trying to strive for, all of them need to work together. It's never one or the other. You have to have all 3 work together. Very similar to what Coach Nagobi talked in episode 6 with mind, body, and spirit. You need all of them to achieve your ultimate success. One thing I wanted to talk about with you, Fifi, is some of the listeners may not know how widely respected Whitewater's football program is for a D3 sport. What made you choose Whitewater, and what was really intriguing for it, and the first things you noticed really when you stepped into that locker room?
So, a big thing that I would say when my decision to go to Whitewater is the relationship like you have with your coaches. A lot of people don't understand this, but when you're transitioning from high school athletics to college athletics, they're vastly different. They're not related at all, and
For sure.
You know that, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And you really have to be invested and love the grind. You can't just like the sport. And I think a lot of younger people don't get that. And so I've seen many people just drop off and on my team or just quit because they come into that thinking it's going to be their small town high school team where they dominate and they're the only good player.
How many players do you think dropped out since your freshman year?
That's a good question. I would probably say 30 to 40.
That's insane.
Yeah.
People don't understand. It's just a different type of intensity in college. And in terms of physical intensity, for sure, but more about focus of intensity. You have to have extreme amount of focus every single day you practice, for every single game, for every preparation you have, just like you talked about earlier. The type of intensity is on a whole new level.
And I also wanted to add, and I've seen you trying to do this with Close the Gate, where you added additions to Aaron and Nagobi, and I also think that adds to your culture because all of you guys were students of Close the Gate in the past. When you all were playing in high school, middle school, even probably elementary school, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a very very similar to Whitewater. In a lot of our coaches played at Whitewater and won like several national championships. So back to that question when you said what was the indicator for me going to Whitewater, is it was the coaches, because people don't understand that you have to have a good relationship with your coaches, and coaches matter a lot when it comes to even high school athletics and especially college athletics.
That's really, really good. Lately, this is personal, but I've been doing some Bible study lately, and he made such a great point. It's not about the subject of matter that you're learning. It's about who the teacher is. Because you'll find all these people who drop off religiously as they get into high school and college, mainly because they didn't have a good enough teacher teaching them what they're supposed to learn. And that's a perfect example. What made you draw closer to Whitewater was the coaches. And that makes the world of a difference, because all these programs are teaching the exact same sport, but it's about who teaches it to you and how they teach it to you. So I thought that was really, really good. Like, if you're ever frustrated with trying to learn something, it might not necessarily be your fault, but really pay attention to who's giving you that information and how they're giving it to you, because that ultimately is the biggest test of if you're going to learn that subject or not. That was really good.
I would also say, like, to add to that, a student isn't going to take that information from the teacher if they don't respect their teacher. And I think that's kind of like the start of, like, building a culture where you have to have people that are teaching that have gained respect from their listeners or students. And I think you've done that, Coach Jack, so we're off to a good start.
Thanks, Fifi. That's actually really big in respect, too. Another huge reason I'm sure you respect a lot of your coaches, like you just said, is because they've gone through the same process as you as Whitewater. Like, they've been through it, so as they're explaining and teaching you all the things that you're trying to learn, they can use examples like, I did this in college and I've been through it. You don't want to listen to someone that hasn't gone through what they're trying to teach you. Like, that makes no sense. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. And some of our coaches are, relatively young. Like, our new linebackers coach is 24, 25. So when we were seniors in high school, he was on the team.
That's insane. That's really good. I'm sure that makes for great stories when he was in college, since he's so relatable. Did you want to talk about your quote?
Yeah, so Coach Jack was kind of talking about working hard, and I hear that a lot. Like, if you want to get better at something, you got to work harder at it. And I totally agree with that. But I also think another thing that every person in the world should know is what you're working hard at. It should really be, what's your something to prove? And we get asked that at our end of year meetings after every fall camp we have. And we have a sit-down meeting with our one-on-one with our head coach. And he says to you, what's your something to prove? Now, it's a very difficult question, and I'll share mine with me. Mine's more, I would say, internal. And I also told him that the fear of being average for me was kind of my something to prove. So it'd be more internal. Now, plenty of people that I've talked to about this, they can have like external factors, like they're trying to make their family proud, or, they're trying to do it for someone else, not themselves. And, that's all great. But I think every single person or that's listening to this should find out what their something to prove is whenever they're trying to work on something.
That is really, really good. I honestly might start using that with some of my students in their notebook, because
it's a hard question to answer.
That's a really good question.
When I was asked it, I had to think about it for a little bit.
So to all you listeners out there, what's your something to prove? Really think about that And I encourage you to write that down because that gives you a strict blueprint on what all your productivity and goals should be working towards, is whatever that something to prove is, to give you the best possible chance to achieve whatever that answer is.
Another thing we're taught about there is, everything is about tradition. We're trying to respect that tradition, so respect the players that have worn those jerseys like before us. And I think that's really cool. And one of the things that kind of keeps that sustained is our motto that when you face adversity or when you have a tough day or you have the worst day in your life, never claim yourself as a victim. And I think that's probably the best piece of advice I've ever been dealt with.
That's really, really good. That directly correlates to an Instagram post I had a few weeks ago, and it basically was about how you react to certain situations, because perceiving something as a problem is all mental, and most people bundle up, pout, complain when something doesn't go their way in life, when in reality, life is the most unperfect thing you'll ever see, and everything is going to be thrown at you for it to go wrong. But some people, the people that achieve whatever that situation is and achieve a higher outcome out of that situation, not a problem, are the people who react positively to it. It's all about your reactions to these situations, like you were just saying. And the people that view themselves as victims, they're obviously going to have a much negative response and outcome to whatever their problem is. And people who react without complaining, who find ways to work around it, how to fix that situation, those are the people that are going to achieve ultimate success. So that was really, really good, because you never know what someone's going through, and everyone has their life's problems. So we got to stop viewing ourselves as victims and be sorry for ourselves, and just get up, take action, and actually do something about it.
And I truly believe that, there's always, someone, even if you can't tell, that's going through at least one thing.
Oh, for sure. People just don't talk about it.
For sure, yeah.
Before we wrap up, Fifi, you probably and might have already talked about this, but what do you think is the number one reason Whitewater has had so much success now and in the past with their football program? And how many national championships have they won?
6.
That's a lot. That's a lot of national championships.
Runner-up last year, and we were preseason number 1 this year, but COVID obviously. Yeah. But we're definitely that's definitely going to be one of our goals. People don't understand is I know our 2019 goal was not to win the national championship. It was actually to win the WEAC and graduate all seniors. So it's kind of that's kind of just a byproduct to the success. So you asked me what the most important thing is, what makes the Whitewater football program.
Yeah, there's tons of football programs, but what do you think is the number one thing that separates Whitewater from every other program?
Yeah, so definitely it's gotten respect throughout the country, especially in D3, basically because of these 2 mottos we have. So, and I brought this up earlier in the podcast, power. It's about tradition, but it's labeled power by tradition, and that's kind of our main thing where, we don't settle for being average. We don't do anything average. So I know a good example for that is we didn't even have a season this year, and we still practiced or did something 5 days a week. And people, I know a lot of my friends were like, what's the point of that? And that is a good question. What is the point? And I think the point is we're just getting ready for next year, our next opportunity.
Not being average, right?
Yeah. And another thing Whitewater football, talks about is we have another one of these where we pound the rock. Now that can mean many things in football. If your listeners aren't aware of that, it can be just running the football a lot, or your toughness and your grit. And obviously it means a lot of things, but our main thing that we do, we actually literally pound a rock after our Thursday practices to get ready for the week. So
What do you pound it with?
a sledgehammer.
Jeez.
So no, it's actually fun. And I know I was given the opportunity to do it one time. I think they pick like 7 or 8 players to do it a week. And, you know, it could be by like a coach seeing like you really like improved your 1% or like you had a good week of practice. And I think like, and they've been doing that for 50 years, I don't know. And you should see how beat up that rock is, and it's still not close to, you know, being destroyed.
That's insane. Powered by tradition. You know, they keep doing it. So that's really good. So what I take away from that, Fifi, is probably the number one thing to a winning culture is that consistency and desire to not be average. Powered by tradition. Doing those things you don't want to do over and over and over again and never settling. Yeah, you've won 6 championships. They want more. You're never satisfied and climbing to a top of a mountain that doesn't have a top, really. What does the future hold for you with Whitewater football? You didn't redshirt last year. You were on the team, but you didn't travel, right? Or how'd that work?
I did not travel this year. So I don't really know what we're doing for the spring with COVID. But obviously one of my goals this year is to, you know, get meaningful playing time and reps and win a national championship. So those 2 things.
That'd be sick. Walking around with a ring on your finger.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Does everyone gets a ring then, right? Do the gray shirts
That's on the
get a ring?
roster. No.
Ah, that's tough. That's tough. So you want to do a quick speed round, Fifi?
Yeah, sure.
So what is your number one hobby when you're not working out or playing football?
Number one hobby?
That's not hanging out with friends. Like, what would you do if you were by yourself and didn't have anything to do?
I'd probably watch some type of show. Netflix, Hulu.
What's your favorite show?
Right now, I actually have been watching Prison Break. I know it's an older one, but I never finished it.
Really?
And you know when you watch a show for like couple years ago and like you never finish it and you kind of start watching it back.
Well, you can't remember any of it.
Oh,
almost.
exactly. And you know during winter break, that's kind of what I got back.
What do you watch that on?
Hulu.
Okay. Who's winning the Super Bowl this year?
Packers.
Yeah, no doubt. I had a dream Packers versus Bills Super Bowl, so I'm convinced that that's going to happen.
See, I think it's going to be Packers Chiefs shootout, and Rodgers just plays out of his mind.
That would be the best possible sports moment of my life if that happened. I'm a diehard Rodgers fan. Last one, best piece of life advice someone's ever given you.
I think I answered this earlier in the podcast, but it was never be the victim. Never think you're the victim of any single, you know, outcome or anything that happens.
That's really good.
I'd probably say that, and ask yourself like daily what your something to prove is.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
That one's really good. All right. You got questions for me, Fifi?
Yeah, I'll start with, what are you most looking forward to for the CTG business and coaching in the new year?
Well, the biggest thing this year will be the 3v3 program we have in the summer. I'm also extremely excited. Coach Aaron has his first full day this week, and it's pretty awesome to see him starting to teach all the things Close the Gate teaches, and I can definitely see it in his eyes how much of an impact on a kid's life you can have just by trying to show them basketball and all the life lessons that coexist with that. So I'm really excited for that. I'm also actually extremely excited. Shout out to the Street family. I'm hiring Ike to start doing some video production for us. So we're going to get a lot more content out to you guys, and an interest of his for later on in his life is video productions, and some of the stuff he's made is pretty incredible. So I'm extremely excited for that too.
Next one, will Close the Gate ever branch out and have an AAU team or program?
I don't even think this is a question that will definitely happen. I do not know how quickly that will happen. That'll probably happen when we get our first facility up and running, when we have multiple courts and can practice with a full court. I actually am coaching a Let It Rain AAU team this year, so I know that will not be this year, but that's definitely something I've thought about, and I will be making CTG AAU teams in the future.
Coach Jack, what is your favorite show currently? Or yes. Or if it's not, or if you're not watching a particular show.
So I said this in the Gobi episode. Favorite all time is Game of Thrones. It's not even close to a second. But since I started Close the Gate, I've barely had any free time to watch shows. One I actually have watched very recently that I encourage you all to check out. It's actually a little spooky, but it's called Surviving Death. It's all about near-death experiences and like spirituality and the afterlife and stuff. But it's kind of crazy to hear all these stories about people that have died and come back to life.
How'd you hear about that?
Sometimes I'll go on Netflix and look at the top 10, and that was on there.
Okay, that's cool.
It's really good. I encourage you to check it out.
Like real life stories of people?
Yeah, like
surviving?
Millions of stories of people being dead for like an hour and they come back. Yeah, it's crazy. Fifi, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about being a part of the Whitewater football program. I will definitely be having you on for more episodes. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Coach Jack.
Of course. Thank you, gatekeepers, for listening. Make sure you're staying up to date and have listened to every single podcast. Please rate us on whatever platform you're listening to this on to be submitted into our Review of the Day contest. This is where we'll give you a shout out if you give us a review, and we can talk about you on the podcast. The reviews will help whatever platform you're listening to it on reach a wider and global audience. That's what it's all about, trying to impact and influence as many lives as possible for the better. If you have been a part of Close the Gate and have been following along for our journey, do not be afraid to submit testimonials. They can be video or text. This will help others see how much true change Close the Gate can make in a life. We love as many questions as possible for new topics to talk about. Don't be afraid to reach out to me, Coach Jack, at jackhummel12@gmail.com or text me 608-201-7384. We want critique. Always strive for the better. You are never too good at something. You can always contact us about literally anything. We're always going to be here for you. Lastly, if you like this episode of Off the Court, please take a screenshot and share it with whatever social media platform you're on to be entered into a contest so that we can notice who's listening to this and whose lives we're impacting and if what we're giving you is what we want, because that's what it's all about. We're here to solve your problems, what your biggest desires and answers want to be. Thank you guys so much. Stay tuned. We're going to keep feeding you this free education and content. It's going to keep coming. We are not going to stop. I'm Coach Jack. Thanks for listening, gatekeepers. I'm out.
Peace.